Hello, this is Kevin Crane coming to you for Eclipse Corporation. If you are a programmer, analyst, or IT professional, you won't want to miss this video.
Today we're going to talk about the difference between a static form and a dynamic form. A simple way to understand this is to understand the difference between the two words. Static, by definition, means lacking in movement, action, or unchanged. For a dynamic form, the definition is constantly changing. So let's take a look at a static form first, and then we'll look at a dynamic form. Both forms have the same content, basically, but there's a few more things you can do with a dynamic form. These are very simple versions of a static and a dynamic form. This is a statement of account, and the first document, or record, is a 2-page record. Here you can see it has a large header, column captions, 20 details, and then a totals area which is marked with dashes and continued. This would be because the form goes 2 pages, so you have to indicate that there's more information coming. Since the form is fixed, the titles such as net total are already there, so you simply have to put a word continued where normally the net total would go. Then on the second page, you would continue with your details, and assuming it's the end, you would fill in the totals. If you see at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a page 2 of 2, and on the first page, a page 1 of 1. Since the form is static, and usually the data comes in a static format, page by page, header, detail, footer, header, detail, footer, typically you will manually be calculating how many details go on each page and what page you're on currently. So this not only makes the design simple and less appealing, but it also makes the data more complex and larger. Lastly, it is not uncommon for you to simply program a backer for every page, whether you're on page 1 or you're on a 2 or 3 page document. You will simply end up with multiple backers. So page 1, it's backer, page 2, and it's backer. Lastly, you'll see here that there are 15 blank line items. That's simply because the design of the table is fixed, so only the first 5 are filled. Now let's look at the dynamic version of the statement of account. The data is the same and the design is relatively similar, but it's more efficient as well as more aesthetic and easier for the user to read. Also, it can actually handle more information. There are some workarounds for a static form which we can talk about to handle some of these situations, but it's not as simple and not aesthetically pleasing. So first, our page 1 has a large header just as it did at the static form. But if I go to my page 2, the header is smaller. This allows us to add more detail lines in a document, which allows us to reduce the page count when printing, which reduces paper, ink, mailing costs, and so forth. Also, if you look, the footer actually indicates continue next page, instead of the static form, which showed a totals with dashes and the word continued where an actual amount would go. So this is easier for a user to use as well as smaller for the continued next page. Next, if you've noticed, there's remarks in between the detail lines, and this is not uncommon for things such as special handling for products, or in this case, comments regarding the invoice statement. For example, there's a comment here indicating that the amount due is past 90 days and exceeds $10,000. So this is critical information, and with a dynamic form we can actually change where this appears, we can change the color, we can highlight it if there's certain variables, but in this case we kept it simple. So basically adding a tag that indicates that there's a comment field, it can actually lay down a different format in the detail area versus just having a fixed table with simple small rectangles for each cell. Next, the page count is calculated automatically because Doc Origin understands that you're on a current page, which indicates the current page as well as where a document ends. So here we have page 1 of 3. If you've noticed also, you really only need terms and conditions once per customer. So that would only come at the end of your document run. So in the case of the first form, there's page 1, and then there's 6 more detail lines on page 2, and then we simply indicate the terms and conditions on the very last page. And lastly, you can see that instead of having blank detail lines, it simply terminates as soon as it hits its last detail line, you can lay down the total. This allows you to take advantage of this white space, which we'll talk about in the next video. Join us in part 2 of the series to see the basic structure of a DAC origin form, specifically a form, page, container, and pane.
Want to find out more? Just go to eclipsecorp.us and check out our other videos. That's eclipsecorp.us. Or call us at area code 678-408-1245, extension 2. That's 678-408-1245, eclipsecorp.us.